Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast with your host, Tracy Hayes. This top agent, top leader, and founder of the Real Dynamic Agents has over 23 years experience in the real estate industry. She is a sought-after keynote speaker. She's highly respected by her peers in the state of Florida and elsewhere, because I've heard her name being thrown around by others outside of the state. Organizes the annual Rebar Camp One Coast event here in Northeast Florida. And this is what I cut out of her her LinkedIn. She combines her extensive experience, tried and true business principles, real life stories, and a comprehensive program designed to reach agents at all levels. She is more than just a successful realtor. She's a professional speaker. She's a gifted teacher who will challenge and inspire to expand your capacity to grow your business and take it to the next level. Let's welcome the lady with the motto, "Do it right, keep it real," Kim Knapp, to the show.
No pressure.
Wow. You put all that out there. Let's see if we can fulfill it.
I can back it up.
Kim, I'm so glad you could make it to the show. I was actually on Lee Brown's. It aired actually a few days ago. We spoke like a month ago, and I was talking to Lee, her, and she was rattling off names of all the leadership of people that she knows on a national level. Mm-hmm. I know you're bringing in a speaker to Rebar One Camp this week from Chicago, and I've chatted with her as well. I wanted to try to get her on the show before there, so we can promote her a little bit, so everyone kind of knows who she is when she comes in. So, what I actually, the first thing, usually I start off with where you're from, but I feel let's jump right in, because I want those who actually are on and don't fall off during the show is tell us a little bit about Rebar One Camp and how did it evolve?
So I'd say about 12 years ago, Carrie and I were in Orlando, and they were having a bar camp there, and we were just really kind of impressed with the idea of agents coming together and collaborating and deciding the discussion topics, being able to actually talk and share ideas. Sometimes you go to a conference and you've got a title of a class and you go into it, and it wasn't really what you thought, and you didn't get what you were looking for out of it. Where here at Bar Camp, you're kind of responsible for getting what you want out of it. You know what the topic is. Now you're asking questions and you're sharing ideas. It was started about 15 years ago by a group of people, and really was in a bar. So it was after a conference, they're hanging out together, and they're sharing ideas, different companies, different brands, whatever. And they said, why don't we do this? Right. And so I called on my education buddy, Kim Sandberg, and Sunny, and Carrie, and a few others, Mario, and said, hey guys, how do you feel about doing this? And we started at NEFAR. This will be our 10th year, though it's 11 years because of COVID, mm-hmm. but actually our 10th event. And the first one we had at NEFAR, and we had about 200 people there, and we literally put chairs on top of tables and put brown paper over them to create division for spaces.
That's great.
That's true.
That's great.
That's true.
Always great to have good story. So I want a couple clarifying questions so people have an expectation, because last year was the first one I went to.
Okay.
And my wife's an agent as well, and we went there, and the started in a bar gave me more context to why it's set up a certain way. You have the breakout rooms. But really you have facilitators to lead discussion. You're not going in there into the breakout room and someone's going to stand up and speak for 20 minutes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is that how all the events are run?
Well, that's how they should be run. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they will run it where they're teaching, but that's kind of a disappointment, because that's not, agents really, they like to share. They really, really do. Yeah, they like to talk. They're very collaborative. And so the idea is it's not a class. And now in our smaller days, even up to when we had 600 or 700 people, we were still living in the land of sticky notes. Mm-hmm. So people would come in and they'd write on a sticky note what they wanted to learn, and we'd have this big board, and then we'd have people working the board trying to organize the thoughts of the sticky notes. Now what we do is we send it out, do it electronically, suggest a session. Mm-hmm. So we look at what people suggest and then organize those thoughts and come up with what are the spaces that people are looking for. The facilitator's job is to pull out some questions and say, why are you here? You came to this room for this session right now for what? Right. And then write some of those key things down. Don't allow people to hijack the conversation, because everybody wants to collaborate and kind of moving it forward. And we try to put people in the room though that do have expertise, so they can share some golden
At
nuggets.
least keep it moving in a forward direction. Yeah, I would imagine. What are some of the, like, say, top 2 or 3 topics that you are seeing almost year in and year out with some of them? You've been doing it 10 years, so are you seeing some similar topics, or are things changing with the times?
So here's something that you point out that's a little bit different about our bar camp, and we didn't mean for it to be different. It's our market, but bar camp for a lot of it was traditionally a lot about tech. And our very first bar camp, there was not like it was there, like, but maybe like in a 20%, 25% mode, and it was a lot of meat and potatoes. And so the entire time, people have been interested in, how do I run my business? How do I get, more listings has always been on the scene. How do I convert more leads? Ways to successfully prospect. Those things are consistent threads. Last year we were talking about, how do you win multiple offers? This year we're going to be talking about, how do you service listing inventory you're holding on to, right?
Right.
It's kind of a different conversation.
How do you price the home properly?
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in a shifting market.
Yeah. Interesting, because you have, this year, obviously you sold out within an hour. And I heard there was 1,200 tickets sold. Some of them are vendors, so literally over 1,100 agents.
Actually, 1,241 sold tickets.
Okay.
So we haven't even put the vendors in yet. We haven't done that once.
Okay.
So every vendor gets 4 tickets. We have 70 vendors.
Right.
So then
But
that'll all be added to
a
it.
huge representation of the active agents in Northeast Florida. When it comes down to a huge percent, and then you have a different grade. You obviously got someone very experienced like yourself in there, but you also got some people who just started 3 or 4 months ago. Or I guarantee there'll be people. This will be like the first realtor event they've ever been to.
So it's funny you say that, because we're actually this year going to be having stars, like, on the classes, like 1 star. Okay, this is like you're newer in the business. This is like a great,
good.
Trying to guide people, or 2 stars, 5 years or less, or 3 stars. So people can kind of really determine those spaces, and if it's at a much higher level, it gets to stay there. And if it's a more, beginner level, I don't use the word beginner because I don't mean that to sound derogatory in any way, but, you got to learn to walk before you can run, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely going to be a facet of it this year.
Oh, I like that. I like that idea. I was actually, while you were saying that, I thought you were going a different way, but then the way you took it was excellent. When I went to a podcast convention, actually, I didn't go this year, it was the year before. That was one of the things they put on there, was everyone, like, how many years they've been coming. Right, this is my 3rd, 4th.
Did
5th.
you read my playbook?
Yeah, when you started to say that, I thought that's where you were going to go with that statement. But excellent. No, yeah, obviously.
Well, we've got ribbons for the badges, like really fun, crazy ribbons, but also like my first timer, or 5 years, or we only got 50 for 10 years. Because there's going to be a small group of people that might apply to.
Right.
But we have people that come from, at this time I looked, we have 6 different states.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Maybe they had a great vacation in St. Augustine.
There you go.
They're coming down for the weekend. But yeah, and warm up. That's excellent. And just the energy in that room when I was there last year. I'm going to move on here a little bit, but I wanted to get that out front for everyone. How rebar is the theme of it, why it's constructed in that facilitating type atmosphere versus an instruction type atmosphere. But Kim, where are you from?
So I was actually born in the Midwest in Illinois. Actually born in the town of Normal.
Okay.
Which I don't know. My mom always said Normal was a
North
setting
Dakota?
on the dryer. I don't know. But so I was actually born there, but I was raised in Danville, Illinois, a small farming,
Okay.
coal foundry, town. And I left there when I was 18. I started helping to raise my siblings when I was 11. I had my first job when I was 11, delivering newspapers. I worked my whole life. I moved out when I was still in high school.
Oh, wow.
Because I could, and I was 18, and finished school. And my grandparents were like, we need to get you out of here. So they took me where my aunt lived, which seemed like to them a good idea, but it was Key West. And so I'm a little don't know anything 18-year-old girl going to Key West in the 80s, which they just should have written shark bait on my forehead. It's like one woman to every 20 men back then.
Is that right? Oh wow, I didn't. Everyone's just at 5 o'clock. Everyone's drinking. That's the only thing I can imagine.
Well, till 5 the next day. And
Yeah.
it all starts over.
So really, I mean, at that, when do you start thinking of a career? I mean, you're 18 years old. You just got to Key West, so I imagine you're doing hospitality type work there.
I got a fake ID, and I was a bartender at Dirty Harry's.
Wow. When do you start thinking of a career? When do things start moving? I guess into an adult life.
Yeah, so I'll skip part of the story. So I went from there and ended up in upstate New York, and that's where I met my husband, and we both worked at General Motors.
Okay.
And I was never thinking about a career. I was just thinking about living a life. I love my husband. I like being a wife, liked being a family. Doing that kind of stuff. And we both got kind of early retirement out of there. They were downsizing, and basically, my husband, he'd been there longer than me. They said, "Look, if you'll leave now, we'll punch the clock for the next 5 years. Just don't come." And reduced his pay a little, but
right.
So we said, if we're ever going to leave,
yeah,
we should leave now. And our oldest was 13. So that was like, I just felt like if once she got into high school, it was going to be more of a battle. And so when we got to Fleming Island, I will say that, I probably was my realtor's worst nightmare when we moved here, because I called all the schools, I called all the builders, I had them send me all their stuff. I had done so much research myself. I didn't understand it like I thought I did, but I did a lot. And I actually enjoyed the relocation experience, but I got here, I was going to finish a degree in Christian counseling, and I told my husband, I said, I think I want to do real estate. And of course, I'm the person, and my husband's like, stay the course, right? So he said, well, let's pray about it and we'll see. And after about a month, I'm like, well, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, go for it. So that's kind of, how that happened.
So this is around 2000. You come down. So, I mean, shortly thereafter, I mean, the market here is on fire. Values of homes are going up. So you're riding a wave.
Well, not day one, though. I mean, that didn't really start to happen until like 2 or 3 years later. When I first started, I interviewed a bunch of agents, site and general agents, and then interviewed brokerages before I even had tested for the state, because I wanted to know where I was going. Some brokers didn't want to talk to me because I didn't have my license yet. And when I went to work for Pete Dalton at that time, and I sold $6 million that first year. I sold one $300,000 house, and my hair was on fire, and I didn't really know what I was doing. You know what I mean? I worked hard and I wanted to do well. Right. But, I mean, my hair was on fire. And then, and I worked really, really hard for all of that. And then as you got into like 2003, it was like, pedal to the metal, right? It just started flying. And I'll be honest, I worked really hard. I always wanted to do a good job. But I went from 6 million to 12 million to 18 to, now this is 20 years ago, or 19 years ago. Yeah. Really, really fast. And there wasn't a lot of training back then on, how to run a team and how to do any of that stuff. I mean, it was baptism by fire and learn everything by mistake.
Let's dig into that a little bit, because one of the things I really like talking about, and of course, 'tis the season of, we're seeing a lot of movement amongst agents between brokerages and so forth. What led you to your first brokerage? Did you actually even talk to other brokerages, or did you just walk into Caldwell? And what happened there?
No, like I said, I interviewed site agents, and then I interviewed regular, general agents, and then I interviewed brokerages. And I mean, I'm going to answer honestly. I talked to all these different brokers, and Carol Pate at the time was the broker of the office that I went to. And we're just having a really great conversation. And her sister came and kind of knocked at the door, peeked in, and she goes, "Hey, are we still going to meet for lunch?" And she said, "Yeah." And she's like, "I love you." And she's like, "I love you too." And she laughed, and this sappy inside part of me was like, "Oh, she loves her sister. I like her." Just being honest. That's how she was just so like human in that moment. And it, and she wasn't pitching me. She was answering my questions honestly. Right. It's just like in real estate, we say people want to buy, but they don't want to be sold. when someone starts selling me, like I just get exhausted. I'm like, please just give me the information. I'll make a decision.
Right.
You know?
So, but you've been there now 23 years. Has there, I was obviously thinking of this 23 years of the same brokerage. I know I've obviously, we were just talking about Christina Welch pre-show. She's been, since she started about 16 years now, roughly, and so forth. I mean, was there times that because I'm sure you're getting calls, like all of us get calls, trying to be recruited from different brokerages. But what was it at Coldwell that really has kept you there? And I imagine there was some thin moments, but then you look back and say, is the grass greener on the other side?
So first, let me say, I always was paying attention to what was going on, and I talked to people, right? So somebody called me, I might say, I want to know what you're doing in case I want to change what I'm doing. So I did like knowing, not just building those relationships, but knowing what else was out there. So I don't hold that against anybody. I think it's smart. I think it makes you more well-rounded to know what's going on out there and understand the playing field. And there were times, when the market crashed, tell agents this, I had 70 lock boxes. I had 65 listings when the market crashed. I mean, y'all just wrap your brain around that. Like, I have 100 agents, in my office right now, and they wish they had 30 or 40, 65. And it was crickets. And then all of a sudden, I went around to all of them that were, really overpriced and said, either we have to make this kind of a reduction or I need to give your listing back because I just couldn't manage all that.
Right.
Then, all of a sudden I'm like, this is not fun anymore. I got into real estate because I love helping people, and we do get to be a part of their lives in a way that is really intimate, when someone's buying or selling real estate, they're getting married, they're getting divorced, they're having kids. The last one left the nest. Maybe you lost a spouse. Maybe you got the best job of your life, right? Like there's these highs and lows. But when that market turned, the wife's in the bedroom crying, the husband's at the table, we shouldn't have moved here. You shouldn't have taken that job. I know. Oh, yeah. People weren't happy, right?
Yeah. How many of of those 65 that you have, the market cups, and I kind of did a little reel the other day talking about how we are in the same mortgage rate range that we were in October of 2008, as things obviously took a turn and then the rate started to drop. But a lot of these people are, caught holding the bag, so to speak, upside down in their homes almost literally overnight. How you're, what's the word, triage?
It's a great
you're
word.
running around and you got all these listings. Now it's like, and then how far will the market drop, right? So you're trying to, I would imagine, I'm just thinking you're trying to reprice the home, and now, and then were there a job there where these people were leaving, or did they have the job offer anymore that they had, and what was the whole reason why they were moving, right? And having to deal with all those situations.
I think for me, that's when I really learned I need to know more. It's not enough to be good with people and, know your contract. You need to really pay attention to the market. And that's a macro and micro, what's going on in your local market, what's going on nationally, how does one area affect, another area, right. And that's when I really entertained, like, maybe I need to leave. Maybe I need to go to a different company, right? And, my mother's words kind of rang in my head that, if I went somewhere else, I would be with me when I got there. What would actually be different? And I realized I needed more education. I had sold a crap ton of real estate by then, but I needed more education. I needed to do my business on purpose. I needed to run it like a business. I needed to take listings, sellable listings, on purpose. And that's when I started to get involved in CRS other education and national masterminds. And I just got really, really better at what I was doing. But it was learning that, the whole CMA thing, I'm gonna take 3 houses and tick some numbers on them, and out comes the magic number. What everybody realized when the market went down, if you priced a house based on the most recent solds, the pendings were already below that. So that's not a thing. So you have to really learn, how do you price? You need to look at, well, how much competition is there? What's under contract? What did the market reject? Expireds, market rejected properties. Agents who've been doing real estate for the last 3 years, they don't even, expired listings, what are those, right?
Right.
So, it's just looking at it more holistically and now working with sellers to strategically position their homes on the market, which is a little different.
Well, I've just noticed, in our neighborhood, I think I used this example the other day. My wife had a listing. It just happened to be in our neighborhood in St. John's Golf, which is a popular neighborhood in St. Johns County. She went in and priced it right, had it decluttered, staged to a point. She got, actually, really the escalation clause was $30,000 more than asking. She had 4 offers listing it on Friday. By Sunday, she had 4 different offers and back and forth. And
this was recently?
This is just right before Thanksgiving. Wow. We literally went on that. We were boarding the cruise ship on Saturday. She had just listed it on Friday, and the calls are coming in. So she's juggling, trying to, as we're sailing out for our, Murphy's Law, right? You're going to go out of town, the phone's going to ring. Right. But obviously she did the right things. There were other houses in the neighborhood that are still sitting there at 60, 90 days because they're just not priced right. What you mentioned, you reached that point where you got that kind of, we want to say an aha moment where you're like, you know what, I need to take myself to another level. What was it you think that triggered that?
Actually, it was just attending. She became my Yoda. Jackie Leavenworth was a CRS instructor at the time, national speaker, and I went to see her, and there were so many things that she said that were so simply true that I didn't do. And I was like, this is so simple. Why didn't I know this? Mm-hmm. And when I realized that there were these things that were just so simple to implement, I didn't know it. I immediately was like, well, what else don't I know? Right? Clearly, there's a lot of, the sphere of all things you could know. Like, I know this little dot right here. And it really changed, investment property. How to buy investment property, like really learning, right?
Buying or selling it too. Knowing the other side, how to sell it to an investor.
I mean, I own $2 million worth of the wrong property when the market turned, right? Because I did not invest myself in literally knowing how to figure out those return rates, right, and my cash flow, like really understanding that you could get that information. So it was really kind of life changing and that's why I think I get so passionate about education, because the more you know, the more valuable you are, the less mistakes you'll make, the more people that you can help, and it can change your life.
Well, from a marketing standpoint, they talk about, be that person in your area, right? Whether it might be your neighborhood. I know in some of your bio stuff, I was reading about how you became very focused on your neighborhood. And I know I had Austin Preck on the other day. He is very focused on his neighborhood, starting right there. But did you even have a vision of the collateral benefits of you have become I'm going to use the word icon in a way. If someone was to rattle off several people who are go-to, I want to say know-it-alls, but knowledgeable people who you want to, kind of have on your Rolodex, and you run into something or want to run. I know a lot of agents have told me, they've come to you for different things, running business ideas or whatever by you, but that collateral benefit of you digging in at that time to now fast forward to 2022, almost 23, and you are, in that leadership role, just naturally have become that go-to person in the region.
Well, I don't think that was ever an idea in my head.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever thought of that one time. Right. But I'm a giver by nature. I've never been, held things close to the vest. I feel like there's enough, kind of an abundance mentality. There's enough for everybody. And maybe that's part of it. Just being willing to share. There's no room for arrogance. Like, I tell my granddaughter's telling me, well, do you think I'm prettier than her? I go, is this about who's prettier contest? Can you all be pretty? Is that okay? And so I think in real estate, success is measured different by different people. Some people, if I sell $3 million a year, this is perfect. If I sell 5, if I sell 10, somebody who sells 10 a year shouldn't feel bad next to the person that sells 25, unless they want to sell 25, then don't feel bad. Find out how to do it, right? But there's room for everybody in this industry, And so I think just being open and is better for all of us.
Right. Right.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I, like anything whether it's athletics, it's business, there's only a certain percentage of people who are going to take it to a certain level. We question how does Melissa Ricks, do $70 million just herself, and you try to wrap around that. But the realization is she's at a different stage in her progression of being a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. Some people get on a fast track. Maybe they hook up with the right person, or maybe things just come naturally to them. There's some things, in life, people are just attracted to them, and not to measure yourself to someone else, but to reach out. Collaboration is in your 111th episode. It's been mentioned, and probably 90 plus is how the top agents will collaborate with you. You've got a question. I know they go to you all the time. I've heard it numerous times. They called Kim and told her, hey, this is my idea, and you've sat down, or whether it's on the phone or had coffee with them, whatever.
So you guys can do that with anybody. Mm-hmm. You could do that with anybody. There's somebody that's like killing it in your market. Call them up and say, can I take you to coffee? You'd be surprised. They're going to say, okay. Very rarely will you come across somebody that's like, no, I'm not doing that. So if you look at the market and you're like what somebody's doing, reach out. I promise you, they're not looking to come find you. Especially when you're a mentor is never looking for the mentee, because when you're that kind of person, you pour, and like it just like falls through a hole. That's not very satisfying. Yeah. But when somebody's coming at you and they're like, oh, what? And then you watch and then they go do it, and that's satisfying. You're like, oh, check them out. They're doing it.
I don't think there's nothing more flattering if you respect someone to actually call them up and say, you know what, I really respect what you're doing. Can we sit down? Now, there's two sides of that. That person, if you're really into that, person, I'm sure you've had many of these people come and sit down with you, like, Kim, what do I need to do? Kim, what do I need to do? And you say, well, I would suggest you start with 1, 2, and 3. And then that conversation leaves. That's where your heart kind of drops, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're flattered and just like you want to reach out and give, but you're like, okay, I told you what to do, but you now didn't do it. And, so those you take some hits on those.
Well, I think where you got to control it is,
because you care about people so much,
is that you don't have the same conversation 3 more times, right? I learned this from my pastor in New York. Matter of fact, my son and Carrie, Knapp, my niece, are there visiting, just visited him now. So this is, he married my husband and I 30 some odd years ago. But he said, he would have a couple come in for marriage counseling, and they would say, whatever. And he'd go, okay, here's what you got to do before next week. And they come in next week, and he'd go, how did you do? And he'd go, well, we didn't do it. And he'd say, well, we don't have anything to talk about, so why don't you come back next week? Because he wasn't going just to talk. Right. Right? It's not, osmosis isn't happening. You have to actually do something. So I think, I've probably, wasted a lot of 1 conversations, but I don't want to waste a 2. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's where you kind of try to hold people accountable, that they need to do something with it.
I'm going to change it because I do actually have some questions here.
Oh.
So to lead us on here. Well, we just kind of touched on this a little bit, so this will carry it on. I took this quote right from I don't know if it was in LinkedIn or I think it was probably on LinkedIn because that's where I got most of your stuff. Early on in the game, I decided that I wanted to be successful. I should find out what successful people in the industry do. What were some of the things, if you're talking, training a class, or you have that agent in front of you that's obviously looking for people that are smarter than they are or successful. I mean, what are some of the things that how they should approach them? I don't know if people are nervous to approach them. I guess it's kind of like that scenario where guys are in a room and there's a pretty girl and everyone's like, ooh, that successful person's over there. Oh, he's too successful. He won't talk to me. What's the best way to approach someone like that?
First of all, that's just their own self-talk.
Yeah.
That's the same thing, agents do when they haven't kept up with their database, and they're like, I can't call the person from 5 years ago. And I'm like, well, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to call them and they're going to go, Joe, I can't believe you haven't called me in 5 years. Click, you know?
Yes.
They're going to go, hey, Joe. You know, I mean, they're not talking to dinner about you for not calling. So it's that same self-talk that keeps you from doing that prevents you from just walking. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen to you? Like, what's the worst thing? They're not going to respond. And then I always tell them there's two great 4-letter words in real estate, right? And the first one's sold, and the other one's next, right? Next. That FISBO didn't work out. Next. That person didn't respond to you. Next. Like, if I can encourage anybody, get your mindset right. Just get your mindset right. If you want to be really good at this, get over being butthurt about stuff. Just you knock on the door, you call the person, and if it's not your tribe, then next. Same thing with reaching out to people. And you know, I would have never started farming when I did. I wouldn't have understanding follow up after the sale when I did. Those are all things like I really understood early on. It was the business part of it that I hadn't learned, but I'm very thankful. I had a lot of mentors, and I'm very thankful for that.
Right. Was on the marketing, you know, because that's really obviously, you know, prospecting, marketing, whatever term you want to put with it. How important is it? And over the 23 years, you've coached a lot of people, had a lot of people following you. How important is it for them to find what they do best? It might be cold calling. It might be knocking on doors. It might be just be involved in all the things at the church to get themselves out there. But how important is it for them to find what their personality, what they like doing, what they're good at, and obviously produce as quickly as possible to really accelerate their career as far as prospecting?
Well, it's necessary for survival. You know, it takes long enough when you're newer in this business to get this wagon train rolling. And so you have to have an open mind. You know, don't be that kid that you're like, here, try this, you know, whatever. And they're like, oh, I hate it. Have you ever tried it? No, I haven't. But you just said you didn't like it, right? But you don't know, but you just said that, right? But real estate agents do that. And it's like and not only do you need to try something, you can't try it once. You know, my best friend, we've been friends since we were 11 years old. You know, she got into playing pickleball, and she has a sister-in-law that's extraordinary at it. Her and her husband both got involved. And I mean, she never played me. I played a lot of sports. She didn't play sports. She played the viola. So she did climb mountains though, which is really counts for something. I wouldn't do that. But anyway, she lost like 90 games that she participated in before it turned. Right? Now, I'm not telling you guys to do 90 open houses, but what I'm saying is she's an avid pickleball player now, and she's extraordinarily good. But she didn't quit. And I think agents will do 2 open houses and go, open houses don't work. They'll call 2 expireds. They don't work. You know, I farmed for 4 months. It doesn't work. You got to give it a chance to figure out what works. But you do have to line up with what's your personality style as well, you know, and figure out what resonates with you, and then do it with all your heart. Just commit. Right. But I think everybody should farm. That's just my opinion. I mean, you've got your sphere, your farm, and then pick another lane. But farming is like, it takes a hot minute, right? For it to, if you pick a field, you know, you got to clear it and till it and plant it and water it and fertilize it. And then the first year it's kind of, you know, but each year it gets better. And I'll tell you, when the market turned, I went from 48 million the year before to 15 million the next year. And you know, so people say, well, you sold 15 million. No, when you got people that work for you, and 15 million was not going to cover the expenses. Right. But if I wouldn't have had my farm, I wouldn't have made it through that.
So define that for us and for the audience too. Farming, meaning your sphere in your, I think you were talking about working your neighborhood was the first thing you did.
Yeah. So I started out, we delivered, I did a newsletter. My family delivered it in Fleming Island Plantation for, 8 years ourselves, every single month.
You made your own newsletter, went out and dropped it on everyone's driveway.
I had a little hanger. Put it up on the doors. I had everybody helping. Actually, Carrie, And I'll just say this because a lot of you are going to know her. She, the last time she delivered newsletters, she was doing it on rollerblades. She rolls up to the door and she goes to stick it on the knob, and the door flies open. She flailed into the foyer. This guy's walking by with his coffee, and she's like, "I got your newsletter." So she took her rollerblades off and she quit. But yeah, so we did that, and then we did events and father-daughter date night, mother-son date night, and door hangers that said, we're accepting trick-or-treaters, or I actually have a whole brochure that's like 40 pages long of just farm ideas.
Right.
And what ends up happening is the people feel like they know you. I mean, Mona Gardella told me when she moved to Fleming Island Plantation, she goes, "I thought you were like their realtor." Like, they didn't have a realtor. There wasn't one. But that's when you do really good farming, and people see you as, the expert in that area.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of all the people. Patty Ketchum has that story about her mom with the card. Her mom getting card. I was going through some of the past shows. Leah Maske with Cole Slate's group over here. She was talking about farming. She said it took about 9 or 10 months before she got her first listing, but it's started the snowball from that standpoint. You become the like I said, the person of the neighborhood. Now I'm going to give you I'm going to let you give the overcome this slight objection, because I can see this happening. I know in my neighborhood, my wife's an agent. I got Christina Welch. There's a lot of great agents that have actually lived in St. John's Gulf at one time or another. There's probably at least a minimum of a dozen agents living in that neighborhood. Is anyone farming that neighborhood? Not that I see. I'm not getting the postcard. I'm not getting a newsletter. I'm not, unless they're on a community page that I don't see. But obviously there's a lot of other realtors in the neighborhood. My reasoning is I know that neighborhood's turned over quite a bit just since I've been there. We're transient area. People come in and out. They move to other neighborhoods and type of thing. That the same people aren't there from the beginning. Just because that other agent's been there as long as you have doesn't mean everybody knows them either.
Well, no. I mean, you want to pull up, you want to get in the MLS, you want to learn how to use the MLS, learn how to use it. I mean, I know you know how to find stuff, but learn how to actually really make it do what you want. But so I have a view created called Agent View, and I use it for the listing agent. I pull up a community, sort it by agent, and now I can, by listings, okay, 1, sold 2, 1, 2, 12. Ugh. Right? Okay, new neighborhood. So first of all, it doesn't have to be your neighborhood, but if nobody's dominating your neighborhood, then why not it be you? Like, you can't even assume that somebody's going to use you again that was happy with you unless you've kept up with them in a meaningful way. So how can you assume people that may or not may have any idea who these people are? Right. You could still, they're out there at home. I think it's called athome.net. They do homeowners association websites, and I was willing to pay them. And I created one for Fleming Island Plantation, not an HOA, but it wasn't trying to look like an HOA, but the functionality of it, collecting all their email addresses. I put all the floor plans on there. They had babysitter, and lawn people and all this kind of stuff that they can share and get those email addresses. Now you can put them in your drip campaigns. You can send them, data reports on what's going on in the community. I'm telling you, you get in front of them and you do it consistently, you'll be the person they call.
Yeah. Yeah. I do not see it happening enough, and you're not the only one. As I said, Austin Preck, he's doing his video. He was on here the other day. If you go back and look at the last episode, he tells you he's doing his YouTube video once a month on what's sold and everything in the community. And he's walking around the community, and there's people that know him and he doesn't even know. But because getting into social media, creating relationships, he's out there every month, and everybody thinks he's Mr. Beacon Lakes.
Well, get into the neighborhood group, participate in the conversation. One of my agents is in World Golf Village, and he got 2 listings off of participating in the conversation, and took that conversation. Actually, there were 2 people, different time frames, that were disgruntled, just meh. And he's like, well, I can help you if you want, right. In a nice way, but I can help you if not being here is what's going to make you happy. But participate in those groups, show up to neighborhood events, be a real person, know me, like me, trust me.
How, 23 years, you've seen the evolution of social media, how you it's easier. You don't have to necessarily do the newsletter. You can do a video if you want to in your own room with nobody around. But obviously putting the right search terms that everybody in your neighborhood is getting that YouTube video or Facebook video, whatever it is.
My gosh. You know, I remember Eden Jordan, you know, slumping herself over my desk going, Kim, you've got to get on Facebook. I'm like, I don't need any more emails and notifications and that, you know, right? You know, and I just laugh about it. And I go, thank you, Eden, for bringing me around. But, you know, there weren't influencers before that, right? And now you can have such a broader reach. You don't want to get caught in, you know, I get so many people to look at my stuff if nobody's responding, right? You need to be on purpose with what you're doing. And certainly now, I mean, we can't figure it out right this second, but I mean, when you learn how to cross-reference your video from where you're doing it in your Reels or Instagram or how you're using it on Facebook or how you're leveraging it on YouTube and where you're sharing, you can do a lot with content. And so find out who your tribe, determine who your tribe is, and then speak to that tribe. But it's a lot easier to get in front of people. And there's some people that, like, on your personal page, I still run into this personal Instagram, personal whatever. Like I don't want to be friends with a customer on there. And I'm like, because what are you doing on there? Like, what's the reason? Like, on your personal. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that are flocking to, you know, of course, you know, no new people are joining Facebook right now, so we all need to get a hold of that concept right now. Like, nobody knew. The young people left the building. But people aren't chasing down to follow a realtor's business page. Like, who's got 10,000 people? Brian Copeland has 5,000.
Right.
And Brian's off the chain. So it's your personal. People want to know you. And Gordon Rainey said a couple years ago, now I would always have like, I'll friend him after the closing. He goes, first contact, I friend him. He goes, I deal with a lot of military. I deal with people coming and going from all these places. And the second we connect, I friend them. They're getting to know me. I'm getting to know them. We're building a relationship and connecting. And I'm like, duh, right? It's just, so, and the second thing I just want to say about that is, from a decade ago, I've told people, and social media is a gift to us in our business because we can go in and people tell us all the stuff they're excited about, all the stuff that makes them proud, all the things they want to celebrate, or if they're going through something difficult. And it gives us a way to meaningfully, you know, I'm so sorry you lost your dog. It's genuine. You mean it. And I'm sorry. And you connected. Or send a card to their kid who just won nationals and, you know, their sport. Right. And they're like, the kid's like, that's cool. I actually got mail. I didn't know what that was. But the parents are like, they knew my kid was awesome, right? So connect in ways that are authentic and meaningful. And social media gives us that.
And social media, and you brought up the word that I was going to, say next is the one, that phrase is, again, going back into a lot of my old videos and going through them and talking with many agents, the word authentic is coming up. I think if I searched it through all the videos, I'd probably find it. I didn't notice it was there as much as it is, but being authentic, you know, when I have a guest on the show, depending on where I can find their information, some people don't have any LinkedIn. So I'm like, okay, because that usually gives me a nice little timeline. I can create questions off, that and start a conversation. Sometimes I got to go on their Facebook and I start going back and I can look at their pictures. And you could look at it's become their photo album for a lot of people, showing their kids 10 years ago. And now pictures of you're seeing them today. And, and the people start to get an idea. Like you said, you start, people like to do business with people, obviously, who they like and who they trust. Well, they trust people who kind of have a lot of similarities that they have. Maybe they do have kids. Maybe you're a similar age. I don't know. Maybe there's a single mom. There's a huge single mom family in the real estate business. A lot of women doing really well with that. But they're bonding through something in that social media opens your book for those people, for your possible future customers to relate to you in.
Well, people are always looking for commonality, and that's where even on first contact with somebody, in person or on the phone, you're asking a lot of questions. Some agents will dive right into talking about themselves, and it's like you got to just restrain that and spend as much time as you can learning about the other person, and they want to ask questions back, and that's fine. But it's really discovery and finding that commonality. It's really funny. You meet somebody and they're like, oh, I'm from Illinois. Oh, me too. We must be distant cousins. It's just like somehow it's just
Yeah.
the only commonality is like a whole state, but somehow that resonates,
It does. It
right?
does. It does.
So it's really seeking that out.
That is so funny. I've introduced some Minnesotians to themselves, and they're like bonded. They're like inviting themselves to Christmas parties and go boating and everything. It's like, it's like, how that even then it's brought into the Midwest, right? Now but yeah, people have treaded over the same turf. I think I had someone on the other day, and we were talking about, why some of the military, not all, really all the military, you may not have served at the same time, but if you're a Marine, and you went to Paris Island like my dad did in '58, or you just went through there, 5 years ago. Yeah, there's McDonald's there, and it wasn't there in 1958, and things were done a little differently. But you have treaded the same turf and sweated on the same, dirt, and there's a commonality there, and there's a bond and a conversation that because you have been there. I do it a lot with my Citadel alumni. We went through the whole thing, different time periods. But this morning, actually, before you came, I was talking to a class of '66 guy. I mean, he was through the Citadel before I was even born. But we're talking in conversation like, hey, we've been hanging out for years because we have that commonality. And
I have an agent, Kim Cameron. She's going to be at bar camp. Kim's awesome. She's also a CRS instructor, team leader in St. Louis. And I don't know how many years ago. And it's one thing I love about CRS. We have a kind of a slogan of like rip off and duplicate. Mm-hmm. So we all just sort of share stuff. And she has this like great, electronic intake form. She also has a paper version. But just really, as she's, learning about her people, it's like if you were going to go to a party, would you have a glass of wine? Would you have a Coke? Would you have a, whiskey or whatever, just really drilling down into building your database on, what sports team do they like.
She has her clients fill this out, or she fills it out?
She does it. She has them fill it out. Mm-hmm. And it's just really fascinating for them, because now they really know how to connect with them. Right. And she's got an incredible database and how she does that. I mean, she's like the queen, but it's something that we can all aspire to be better at, I'm sure.
Whether it's their sports team or what bottle of wine to send them,
what kind of music, what kind of concerts,
yeah,
and it could even be like, I'll see something. Actually, Sean Carpenter, who's one of our speakers coming, I got him so that I don't buy Sean Carpenter Christmas presents. Okay, but he's really into breweries, and everywhere he travels, he always visits a brewery, wants to look at their local IPAs, all this stuff.
Right.
And I was at World Market getting Christmas presents, and I saw a box that was like beer trivia. I'm like, I'm going to send this to him. So that's what ends up happening when you have a customer, there's a concert coming, you email it to them. Like they come top of mind,
right?
But you got to know it first.
And it's those little touches. I've got another quote here. Being in real estate has nothing to do with selling houses or just opening boxes, she says. People are looking for a home, a place, a refuge at the end of a long day, or to celebrate the most important moments of their lives. That's a big decision. I'm here to help and make them that vision a reality. How have you taken that culture? I mean, you're kind of describing a culture, and how do you maintain that with your agent? I mean, you said 100 agents that you're influencing them. It gets difficult when you start getting them to have them, stay focused on the culture. What's something you do in the office to keep that going?
Well, first, I just want to compliment them. I mean, I have the best, most compassionate, professional, giant group of grown-ups ever. I mean, they're really phenomenal. And I mean, that really is our culture. You have to get, buyers buy houses and sellers sell houses. And we navigate people through the process. We gotta not be attached to the outcome, right? And know that this is too big of a decision that you're not going to make somebody buy a house. You're not going to do that, but you can give them that right information. I mean, this is the place they need to go. This is it. And sometimes this is it's completely irrational. I mean, when I learned how to manage showings, which was, okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going to make appointments. We want to try to keep them. Sellers, really work hard to prepare their home. let's not take any notes or anything on the property. Let's do one lap and decide if you would buy this house. And if you would, then let's spend some time. If not, let's move on. I had a FBI statistician who had a dossier on every house. He would print up the Google overview and the deed and the mortgage and everything in MLS. And he had furniture taped together like a newspaper that he could unfold so he could see if his furniture would fit, cardboard the size of his plates, and this started, and then the toothpaste was out of the tube, and I'm like, I can't reel this back in. And so we did this for a year. They would come down, and then they walked into the house that they bought. She went in first. The house was vacant. She stood and looked through, started crying, went, this is it. He didn't even really make it in. No newspaper furniture, no cardboard plates, no dossier. So it's not always a rational decision, but it's navigating that this is such an important decision for people. Do you see yourself here? Mm-hmm. How would you use this? Would you feel good coming home here at the end of the day?
So someone I'm going to say it's not only males, I'm sure females, but the male side of things, we're probably not, or even the engineer. We can label it as the engineer is more analytical. They're, is this house going to appreciate in value? Or they're trying to figure out everything out. But what's really important is how they feel when they pull in the driveway every night, and get up in the morning and where they're at and so forth. How do you that agent that comes in? What are some initial steps that you put them through that when they're interacting with that buyer or seller, that initial interview, what are some things that you encourage them? What are some questions that they should ask that maybe not people say, well, that's not really important, but it is important when you're trying to build that relationship?
I think you need to know people's why, and you need to sometimes go deeper. Say they say something like, well, I just really want privacy. Tell me more about that. Does privacy for them mean 2 acres? Does privacy mean there's trees behind the house or on the side?
Fence.
What, like they want a 4-bedroom house. Tell me more about that. How would you use that space? Well, actually, I need 3 bedrooms and an office. I'm just saying, like, when you learning about why are you moving at this time? Well, we really want to get back up by our family. We'd really like to go before the snow flies. Our grandkids have a big winter production we want to go see. When you learn people's why, you can take them back to it when they're being irrational, right? You got $1,000 worth of repairs. They're happy with the price. They're happy with the closing date. Now there's $1,000 in repairs, and this is now we get into the principle of the thing, right? And being able to say, look, let me ask you. So you guys, you're happy with the price. And you feel really good about the closing date because it's going to get you to where you go and when you want to be there. If you get everything else you want, would that $1,000 in repairs be worth it? Don't answer me right now. I want you guys to think about it. Whatever you want to do, I'm for. I'm for. I just want you guys to think about it. Get back with me tomorrow. Let people, think. I mean, agents are so quick to negotiate. I'll have, like they're negotiating like in 1 second. I don't even know how you're doing that if you're actually talking to your buyer or seller.
Right.
But I've had sellers and buyers call me back 5 minutes, 10 minutes later and go, wait, we changed our mind. Let's do this. It's like slow down. But when you know their why, you say more the buyer, it's $1,000 worth of repairs. Well, if they're not doing it, blah, blah, blah. You say, well, okay, hold on. You really wanted to be in this school district. This is the price range you want to be in. The house checks all the boxes, and you're going to get in by the time frame. If it meant getting everything you want,
you're getting 99 of the 100 things,
right? But you got to frame it, right?
Right.
But if you don't know what's important to them and why, you can't bring them back to. And then so a lot of deals fall apart because the agent gets in the way. If I can just tell you, it's not your house, not your money. Stop. Just stop. Don't answer for other grown-up people. I've had agents say they'll never pay $20,000 over the list. This was like 7 years ago. And I go, would you just ask them without your spin on it? And their agents act like they're all like, I can't let them do. They're grown, about to spend $500,000. I think they can decide whether that's in their best interest, right? But agents get in the way, and then help navigating people through. How do we get here in the first place? Because people get irrational when they feel under pressure. Really learning negotiations on doing a win-win.
So I think of a situation I had, and I really felt and this is the way I felt. So I don't know if it's how the agent who referred me, but then never referred me again after it, because it was a house that had the roof was basically gone. Air conditioning was on its last thing. So there was $30,000+ of things. These people really wanted the house. They had the seller, but it was back to that situation. Well, I mean, you either this is the deal. So you either take it, or you go back to the seller and say, hey, this is the situation. The roof has got less than 2 years, so we've got to do something. And they went back and we ended up doing a roof escrow, and they ate the air conditioning. The buyers going in, they accepted it. But I was like, do you realize if you don't go back to the seller and say, hey, this is the only way we're going to make this deal work, that next person that walks in that house, that air conditioning could go and be gone. And then they are replacing the air conditioning because no one's going to buy the house, or unless they're going to take dollars off. So to take that next step, I think a lot of them would get transactional or from that standpoint, and not, like you said, take that next step. We don't know what the buyer, the person on the other side, what wall they're against. We don't know where they're at. I know a lot of people like to say, oh, well, they bought the house for this and now they're selling it for that. Well, you don't know what happened. They could have actually used up all the equity paying for medical bills. You don't know. Right. That's not your thing. They bought it at market value. You're buying it at market value. And you don't know, and you have to, like you said, to walk away from that. There was a term, what made me think while you were talking here. It's not like buying a car where I can go buy the same Dodge pickup truck I have now at 1,000 other dealerships all around the country. I can do that. So it is just a physical piece of metal that other people are selling. But that house on that lot at that address, there's nothing is more unique than you personally as a human being.
Well, and I think that a lot of agents, this isn't a bad thing. A lot of agents, when you learn how to identify it and control it, but a lot of agents are people pleasers, right? And in doing so, sometimes they do a disservice by not, they think that they're doing a good job is always winning something. But sometimes that's telling people the truth that they need to hear, right?
Right.
So I remember Sharon Alters is the one that taught me this years ago, and she said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest would you like me to be with you? And really having that conversation, early on, whether that's a seller or a buyer. And, so that could be whether you're negotiating repairs, difficult information. Part of that is being knowledgeable, get educated. With a seller, you should have already had that conversation, right, about the roof, all of that, what that potential is, being uninsurable, all those kind of things. Understanding, maybe if the AC is really old, get a pre-inspection. I have something for the sellers I created years ago. It tells them all the benefits of a pre-inspection, and then they have to check a box that they choose or decline and sign. That makes them more responsible. See, we don't treat grown-ups like they're grown, and then everything runs downhill this way, right? So making them responsible. And I've had agents go, well, then you have to disclose that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it would be worse to disclose it than like have the whole deal blow up, because the buyer's going to have it inspected and find it anyway.
Right.
Right.
And so, and would you feel, even if they didn't find it, you constantly knew there was something significantly wrong because you knew, whatever it is, and they did, and someone didn't, could you hold your conscience with that?
Well, you have to disclose. I'm just saying, it's going to get discovered. I mean, will their inspector find other stuff? Yeah, but they likely won't find any other big rocks. Right. And so now the seller's not surprised. I tell the seller, this puts you, it's entirely up to you. But by doing so, this puts you in the driver's seat. You know what's ahead, and maybe you can pre-plan on how you want to handle that. So, I mean, that's just an example.
You are pro pre-listing inspection. You really
100%,
try to,
100%. And I got to tell you, I spent way too much time organizing $500 and $800 worth of repairs just ridiculous,
good
copious
point.
amounts of time.
Good point.
And so I just didn't want to do that anymore. And then you'd have deals blow up over probably things that weren't that big, but you have a buyer who's very fantastical about everything, who's like, this is a sign from heaven, you know, and it's like, no, this is kind of normal, and you know, we can
It's
fix
a
it.
house that's whatever years old.
You know, but just giving people the truth. Agents that won't tell a seller that, you know, the house smells like smoke, or, you know, that the carpet's in rough, whatever it is.
Right.
It's like, so the plan is to let the market reject them. Like, that's the plan, you know, or do you tell people, you know, look, is the goal to get the best price? Now, maybe it's not. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes people have the urgency. But if they say, yes, we absolutely want to get the best price. Well, if that's the goal, would you be willing to X?
I am pro pre-listing agreement because I've seen it on my side, because the thing comes back, well, hold off on the appraisal yet. We're not okay with the inspection. And you work so hard, and you agree with me or disagree with me. You work so hard as an agent to get that buyer, put them in there, and that's okay. This is our home. They sign the contract. You would love that you could close like within the hour, right? But you're gonna have typically 3 weeks to 30 days or more before you're gonna close. So now they're gonna go home and have standard procedures. Did we do the right thing? Are we buying the right house? All this is going on. They go and do the inspection and then find the $1,000 in repairs that could be so minor and like done the next day, but that is their ticket out of the deal. And if you leave that out on the table because you didn't do the pre-listing inspection, you did all that work, matched them up, got them to sign a contract, got a contract accepted, and now you're giving them an opportunity to get out. And I never really thought about what you just said, the time spent to get the smallest stuff just done, because you want to get it done right away. So, everything, sometimes before the appraiser gets there, if it's something that like that needs to be fixed, and the stress and your time. So there's a ticket out in your time that you're saving by promoting the pre-listing inspection. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, it's worked out really, worked out really good for us. And like I said, puts the seller in the driver's seat. And also you realize, like, these $500, $800 repairs, agents look at part of your role is like managing this whole thing. And when you're on the other side of it and you have a buyer, and it could be more than that, it could be a roof, everything. Agents who just tell their sellers, here's the inspection report if you want to go get some estimates. Like, don't do that. No. Don't do that. Like, you need to have people that you work with, that you can take control of that situation and help guide them through that process. But when you realize it's all this little stuff, and what we don't understand sometimes as agents is people are looking for a reason not to buy. And you could see that when you're showing houses. What do they walk in and they're instantly pointing out, don't like that, don't like that, don't like that, whatever. And when they start having positive buying signals where they're going, oh,
that's beautiful.
Oh, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
Because they're really, it's a big decision. So they're often trying to talk themselves out of it. And the average negotiation is 21 days. And agents are like, I only negotiate contracts for a day or two. It's like, oh, there's far more than that, right? Mm-hmm. You've got the inspection, then you're waiting on the appraisal, which you're getting hung up on. Mm-hmm. And, is that going to come back? And, that's probably going to be a little wonky in the coming 6 months.
Yep. I'm going to wind down because we're a little over an hour here, because some of the standard things, and I know you're a promoter, but I want to hear your pitch on this. How important is it for agents to continuing to educate, whether it's going down to NEFAR or whatever local board there may be, getting the structured classes, or there's some lenders putting on a VA loan seminar, or the home inspectors, doing all the different things that they can go and get a free lunch at, or breakfast or whatever. How important is it for them to schedule that regularly, whether it's weekly or monthly, that they're continuing to grab nuggets on a regular, consistent basis?
Well, I mean, it's mandatory. So you might do it different. If you're a reader, or you're watching YouTube videos and you're reading and you attend 1 or 2 classes a year, then that's fine. If you're not, you need to get places because first of all, there's solutions. There's lending solutions. Right? You might not be able to do it this way, but I can do Homes for Heroes. I can do a USDA where this house is. You need to understand how all of that works,
we'll
right?
promote John Adams's
Renovation
loans, a VA renovation loans. Maybe the veteran can't buy the house it is, but if we do a VA renovation loan, we can.
Right. Lending has built within it a variety of solutions.
Right.
But it's the same with a lot of things. And the more an agent knows, the bigger their arsenal is, the more they win. It's your unique point of difference. So, I was talking to my agents about portability and how many agents don't understand that, in this market in the last year, I had friends that were in real estate who were selling their houses, who realized their just market value was really low, went to the property appraiser, got it raised $100,000, $120,000, all of that in their just market value and their assessed value. That difference is the portability you take with you to the next house. And so now they do that and they take an additional $120,000 on the $70,000 they already had to the next house. Now, if that's information that you understand, does that give you a unique point of difference when you go to a listing appointment? Mm-hmm. One of the things I make sure is that you're going to get a maximum portability when you go to the next house. That's one little kernel I gave in like 27 seconds.
Right.
But there's thousands of those kernels. You can't get caught up where that's all you're doing. But once you stop learning, I ask my agents, who would you ever work with? An agent who's been in the business 20 years who tapped out 10 years ago, or a brand new agent with a chip on their shoulder? And you know what they say every time? The brand new agent.
Chip on the shoulder,
because it's so hard to take somebody who tapped out a long time ago and try to tell them they don't know what they think they know. It's just that the new agent knows it and they're just fronting. So you can work through that, right? The one who tapped out, you can't.
Yeah. The market. I love this statement. I know you hear this all the time. You're working with buyers or calling on FSBOs, right, or whatever. But the buyers will say, "Oh, well, I've sold many of homes. I know what I'm doing." And when you let them kind of take control, especially over pricing, I guarantee you, any agent that has any more than 2 or 3 listings right now, they have somebody in there that's not priced the way they suggested to price the home, that they're telling them they're smarter than the agent, when in reality they're not, because they haven't sold homes in the last 6 months, or let alone the last 3 months, and what's changing, and what was happening last year, to compare to this year, and how you're listing and structuring the deals and so forth, and you staying abreast and I think the bottom line word, and I think you would agree with, is having that confidence to express that to them.
Well, then you need to know how to get the data, and you need to know the data. So whether you're using, if you haven't in our MLS Domos Analytics, you can check that every day and say, okay, we've got 3.5 months worth of inventory. The days on market has gone to 39 days from, up from whatever days, what percent that's up. When you know that specific data, and you can go by month, but I'll tell you, when you go to a specific house, the days on market, or the inventory that we have. It may not be 3.5 months. In the 4 to 550 range in this community for 3-bedroom houses might be 5 months. So you need to be able to know how to do that research, do absorption rates, so you can explain that data. And you need to be doing it from the beginning, not trying to back clean up with it later. Right. And setting those expectations. But again, that's being honest with people. They're still going to make a decision. They're going to set the price. But I was helping one of my agents. We resolved a binder dispute with a FSBO. And the daughter was handling it, and I was talking to her a couple weeks ago, and she goes, and we knew each other from my farm. Mm-hmm. She knew me. She goes, well, Kim, it's not like the market turned on a dime or anything. I said, well, no disrespect, but it actually kind of did. Right? And I sent her the data and said, I'm sending this to be helpful. I want you to understand what's going on because you're going to be putting this house back on the market.
Right. What would you say is one thing that you are doing now, or maybe have done for the last 23 years, but you do consistently, that moves the needle in your personal business?
I would say, I keep talking about learning, but reading and expanding your mindset. The more that you can understand other people, whether it's your family, your coworkers, your customers, the people that you interact with, and understand yourself, your relationships, your projects, your goals, your whatever that is, can be extraordinarily more successful. Like, I wish I knew 20 years ago what I understand now. And that just comes from, that alone, quick example, Carrie, anybody who knows Carrie, my niece, I'm more the D, she's more the I with a kind of the S, kind of softer.
Right.
She uses lots more words than I do. I use lots less words.
Yeah,
I type an
I'm
email
a
to
G.
somebody, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, da 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 da, and I'm like, oh, I should say hi first.
Yes. Make sure you say thanks.
Right. I got to do that in the beginning. And but for her, she's like, you're a D, and of course she goes, but those D personalities. A couple of years ago, she's like, I'm working on this because they feel like they're yelling at her. That's how she feels, but they're not, right? But when she feels that way, then she responds that way, right? So that when she can learn the D person's not yelling at me, when I can learn that I want the I to land the plane when they're telling me a story, that I got to let them tell some of it because I just want to go land the plane. I just want you to sit down. I'll interrogate you. That would be faster, right? But it's important. So I need to let that happen. Well, that works with your customers, right? Where you've got the D and the I. When you put things in proper perspective, then you receive and respond differently. And I just think that can make a big difference in your whole life.
I love that angle, in like you said, that's a journey. That's not like reading one or two books or going to one seminar. That's going to them consistently over time, reading numerous books on the subject until finally your brain reaches that tipping point, or you actually come to a point where, you could walk in a room and start talking to them in 15 minutes and say, they're a high D, this, that, and analyze them so that you know how to come back and approach them. Like, I think I always remember when the years I was at Quicken Loans, I had, of course, my manager was from Michigan, and he would love to listen to me talk to other New Yorkers because that's where I'm from, and how New Yorkers, talk. And I try to explain to my wife, like Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino, and how that age, that generation, and how they talked. Clint Eastwood does that a lot in his movies. He gets really, pinpoint to the generation of how those people talk to each other, and if they talk like that today, people we know our millennial generation would get offended. That's the word I want to, offended. But that's the way people talk, and we laughed about it, and then went out and had a beer or whatever, right? That's just that's just the way of talking, but understanding people. And I think obviously when you bring in the DISC assessment and understanding also, where people are from are actually huge, and we have a huge influx of people. Obviously Europeans in here. We our Spanish population that have come and settled in Jacksonville. So you have this whole different. You have cultural.
That's another whole level. Is understanding.
That's a whole other level. Yeah.
I think it was Gonzalo Mejia. He's Peruvian, and he was telling me culturally they're late. Always late. Like if you say the party's at 6, they start coming at 7. And he did that when he got here, and he was like, at 7, it's like, you guys already ate?
Yeah.
6 means 6. He's like, I didn't know that. I thought it meant 7. But I mean, that's a thing to know. I mean, my husband always asked a million questions, and I was like, what is this, the Spanish Inquisition? Like, why do you ask me so many questions? And as I learned about him, that's his way of not only understanding, but making sure that what I'm saying is what he thinks I'm saying. But when you learn that a customer's doing that, you realize it's not that they don't trust you. They need to learn and understand and know they know. So those kind of things just go a long way.
And the fact they're asking you is great. I mean, when they don't ask you and they're asking other people, that's a problem. You want them asking you. What would you say in 23 years, and you probably have a book on this, but what would you say was I write my notes biggest mistake, but I mean just something that you did that you're like, when you're in front of your agents, like don't waste your time with that.
This probably won't be the direction but I think I might respond to this. I love, you read one of those quotes in there when I first got in the game. I love the negotiation and, doing all this and then making something work. And, it's like, whoosh, swish, nothing but net.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, I like doing that. And when the market turned and, we were like in the eye of a storm, we weren't really sure, it's like, it's a correction, it's this, we just didn't know. And it was before it really went over the ledge. And I was, working with these people and they're like, well, what should we do? Should we go counter again? And I'm all about, let's take another swing, I mean, I'm encouraging them very immaturely instead of saying, you know what, you guys, real estate's like going to Vegas. That's what I'd say now, not what I said then. Real estate's like going to Vegas. You have $375,000 in front of you. You can cash out and walk away, or you can go all in and spin the wheel. You need to be okay with whatever those results are, right? Instead, I'm like, yeah, we'll swing again. And we swung again, and they walked away. And there was no more buyers. Like, nobody else came. And I really care about the people. I mean, I really care, like most of my peers do. And that's devastating to feel like you are any part of doing something like that. Mm-hmm. So that was so bold to me that this is not my house. This is not my money. And I need to help other people get their goals met the way they want to do it.
Wow, that's a great story. Great learning. I mean, me and my wife flipped a house when we first got married, and luckily we got it. It took us like 6 more months before we got someone to make the same offer as we did on that first one, and we passed on it. And it's that same you're telling that story made me think of that. Last formal question: what do you love about real estate so much?
Well, first of all, I actually love real estate people because they're fun. They're fun. They're friendly. They're collaborative. They're just. I hate the rap that we get as a culture, because I just and my real estate friends know, like, I love my real estate friends. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit, and it could be anywhere, right? They're just wonderful. I mean, my son got in a bind in Hilton Head. And I went on the CRS website and found a CRS agent there to help him.
Oh, cool.
A stranger.
Yeah.
Didn't even know. I'm like, hey, I need your help. So, I mean, I feel like, we can do that. But the other thing is, I sort of mentioned it earlier, is that, people are making this big financial decision, and we get invited in. I mean, again, these are life moments. And we got to remember that when people act crazy, because they're going to act crazy. I mean, real estate agents act crazy. They turn into buyers and sellers when they're buying and selling sometimes, right? That you get invited into, like, they just got married, or got divorced, or having more kids, or there's this other life event going on. And not that you're celebrating anything negative, but when someone invites you into that, you have an opportunity to develop a friendship for life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because you've really been a part of
their
journey.
Part of that stress and experience they have. Yeah, 100%. All right, these are my last 2 informal questions I ask everybody on the show. What is it that you and the Knapps love to do in Northeast Florida? Is our Florida lifestyle question. When you're not selling real estate.
Oh my gosh. Well, at this point in my life, because our lives are I've raised my kids, and now I have my granddaughter, so life's a little different. But I honestly, when it's quiet, I just like to be at home on my back porch with the fire and my husband and watch a movie. Right. I love Amelia Island. John knows that. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping to see him and his wife at the end of the month. We had a place up there for years. We go up there regularly to visit. There's something about going up there that's like, I don't know what it is. I just love it up there. I
mean, the opposite feeling, instead of going to Orlando, you feel this great opposite feeling when you go to Amelia, like, yes.
Yeah, and if you've never gone and stayed there, you need to go, you just go stay a weekend. It's just fabulous. Very relaxing.
There is no doubt that and even going into South Georgia, there's a sector there that is a hidden gem, so to speak. Last question. Overall, is it more important who you know or what you know, and why?
So you said something right early on in the conversation. We're talking about success, and success. You can work really hard, and we all should. And I'm a workhorse, but combined with opportunity is where the magic happens. You can have opportunity, but maybe you don't take advantage of it. Maybe you don't have the knowledge to take advantage of the opportunity. Mm-hmm. You can have lots of knowledge and no opportunity. There is that. When my opportunity was, I wanted to work hard. I wanted to know things, and I happened to start farming Fleming Plantation when 50 people lived there, not 2,000. Right, and that was an opportunity I took advantage of. I took advantage of buying the URL for the community because the HOA didn't buy it. I mean, I was like ahead on. Just a lot of those things happened. So, I think you can't have one without the other. But opportunity, you need to be paying attention for opportunity. You need to look for opportunity, and we have not because we ask not. right? So you can be knowledgeable, but if you don't seek out opportunity, you're going to miss it. Nobody's going to walk up to you and say, "Hey, hi, I've got opportunity for you."
And I know you're really smart.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
You have to go, wait a minute, I need to go check that out. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to go talk to that person. So, I'm going to say it's kind of both. You need to invest yourself in being knowledgeable, and you need to be aware for opportunity.
Excellent answer, Kim. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was
looking
fun.
forward to the Rebar event. We're it's just another great synergy of Northeast Florida, and then many others coming from other states. It's going to be hopefully another great event, which I expect it to be.
Well, I have to tell you one thing, because if I don't, my friends are going to let me have it.
All right.
You got to go RE Bar Camp. You got to do that.
RE Bar Camp.
Got to do that.
All right. Why does everyone call it Rebar then?
Because they don't know. And I told this great joke, and it went.
But,
I don't think it went over good last year.
I'm gonna do a reel on that.
Would you please? I would really appreciate it. 'Cause I did this little joke at the opening last year, and I said, what's a pirate's favorite letter? And
Oh yes, I remember you saying that.
They go C, and I go you. No, I'm sorry. They all go R, and I go, you think it'd be the R, but it'd be the C. And I'm like, okay, it's RE.
RE Bar Camp.
Okay.
But that's I want to RE Bar Camp. RE Bar Camp. That's how you pronounce it. Yeah, we'll need. I'm gonna cut a clip on that. We'll cut a clip just for the show right there. RE Bar Camp. But I'm looking forward to that, and I appreciate you coming on.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Hopefully our audience here